we may have a speaker issue on that one. So without further ado, I'm just going to come down here and power that one on. This one may or may not be powered on. See how that goes. This one, the power is in the back here. So we'll turn that on. Sometimes that won't power up right away, and you just have to turn it on and off and it will go back on. Again, like I said, it's a little bit older. Yeah, so over here, we're coming down and we've got the on off right here. So the last but not least, like I said, I kind of let everything kind of cycle through for a second and then I'll turn on the speakers. So that is the only difference really from all of our other suites, because all of our other suites I just say, yeah, turn everything on, you're good to go. But this is the only difference, is the speaker amp. So you will notice that there is some masking tape on strategic points. You never use masking tape on a board, just so you know. And you'll see why. There's like sticky mess on each one of these a little bit. So you should use board tape, which is actually something that won't leave a residue. But in this case, someone had used masking tape and it's kind of now become a feature on here. Which in some regards is actually okay, because you can now see all the bits that you need to worry about. So what I would say is when you come in here, power everything on, look for the masking tape. Yeah, so look for the masking tape. So without further ado though, I will post this. I will put a bit of masking tape here, which is fine, with the actual password for this, because it is actually a specific password. And so I'll go in here and it is, as you can see, it says a Cinnabon right off the start. It is IMADP. So I hit turn to that and that's going to power all that on. So right now it's all going onto our desktop, which is just totally fine. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to start up Pro Tools 10. So Pro Tools 10 will start up and cycle through. There's a slight bug, a tiny bug, is that once it's actually started up, it will default back to Finder. So it's just a tiny little thing. But we'll wait for it to do its thing. And I'll sit down here and I'm just going to show you a couple of odds and ends with Pro Tools. Now, I don't use Pro Tools a huge amount. James, I know you do, correct? Or you have?
Yeah, I have Pro Tools.
Yeah, you have Pro Tools?
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Yeah, so basically I'm going to go through the basics. Feel free, James, if you want to hop in at any point, you're more than welcome to do so.
Okay.
Yeah? So at this point, so as you can see, it's defaulted back. So I'm just going to hit Pro Tools one more time. And I'm going to come up here. So this is now Pro Tools started up. And you can see we're using Pro Tools 10 in here. So it's a little bit older version. So first and foremost, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go into a new session. So a new session, this is where I can actually create it from either a template or from a blank session. I'm just going to go for a blank session just so you can see it being built a la carte. I can go into a template depending on what I'm actually doing. Again, you can see here the session parameters. So I can, what am I going to be recording that audio as? Wave in this case. We got our bit depth. We're going to put our bit depth up so that we're at that 32-bit float. Sample rate, we got the 48 kilohertz, which would be perfectly fine for us here. And our IO is the last used. So we won't need to change that up because we know it's all working and feeding through okay. So I'm going to hit OK at this point. So you're going to ask me where I'm going to save this. If you've got your own external hard drive in here, perfect. I'm just going to save it to the desktop for right now. So I'm just going to do my usual test, and it's the 22nd, and I hit that. Now I usually do that, just call it a test, the name and the date, to ensure that, if I do something specific on a day, I know I can go back to that day and, kind of work out what I did. So as you can see, here we are, and we don't have any, tracks in here at the moment. Yeah, but here it is, kind of ready to go. So I'm going to go in and going to start some tracks up right off the bat, and then I'm going to kind of explain what we're looking at right here. So I'm going to go to track. I'm going to go to new. And I know I'm going to have 2 tracks. I'm going to be recording 2 tracks. So I'm just going to hit 2. And right now you can see I've got a whole ton of different parameters or options right here. We're just going to record 2 mics or 2 inputs, 2 instruments. So I'm just going to go mono. And I've got audio tracks. I've got all sorts of different tracks I can bring in. Again, all I want is an audio track. And I've got samples or ticks. I'm going to stay with samples at this point. So pretty straightforward. all I really need to do in this case is come in and make sure that I've got the tracks that I want in there. So there we go. So I've got 2 tracks coming in, and now because this is a control surface, as soon as I've started 2 tracks, I've now got 2 faders that have come up. So basically in that case, what we're actually looking at here is not only the the software, but this is a control surface. It's not specifically a mixer, so it is the embodiment of the software, just like the Fender Suite is a control surface. So anything that we change on here, we should be able to see changed in the actual software as well. So it makes it a little bit easier for us when we're mixing and so on and so forth. Okay, so if I needed a master track, I might need to bring that in. Sometimes I actually do, depending, so that I can actually bring the overall levels down for the mix. That's not actually specifically for the actual recording, but actually for the actual mix itself. And I definitely would when I'm actually mixing in here, like you are right now with your signal processing project. So you definitely would have to build all of that. For right now, we're just too worried about the actual recording itself. And I've only got 2 instruments. So as usual, it's exactly the same as in Audition, and I'm doing any recording. I'm going to come in, I'm going to relabel my tracks, because as soon as I relabel my tracks, as soon as I record, those names are going to be baked into that, so I can know exactly right off the bat. So I can come over here and I can go lead guitar, so right there, and hit OK. And the next one over, I can go bass and hit OK. So there we go, I'm in business. So what are we actually looking at here? So this is Pro Tools. Now, Pro Tools pretty much is industry standard in a lot of higher end places. So the difference is, and why we don't teach it right off the bat here, is that you've got Audition already. Yeah, so that's coming as part of your suite. You've got it on your computer, so you're good to go. So we stick with Audition because it gives you all of the fundamentals and it gives you all those different things that you need to do. And then we get into this when those are going on into the elective, so that they're going to be working in that field a lot more. Like most places, you will not see Pro Tools unless you are actually a sound mixer, producer, and so on and so forth. But if you're like working on your own projects in the documentary, you're probably going to be doing your own stuff in Audition. So that's why we stick with those 2 overall differences. So what are we looking at? So Pro Tools is a digital audio workstation. There's a bunch of them out there. All of them have their strengths and weaknesses. All of them do things a little bit different, but all pretty much you can do the same sort of stuff with. This one does have MIDI though, which is Audition doesn't. So you do have MIDI in here, so you can build MIDI in, which is awesome. We're not going to worry about that today though. So right here we got edit modes. And edit modes will allow us to manipulate or move around within our project a little bit differently, depending on what tools that we're in. Again, James, feel free, if I glaze over things, feel free to jump in about what you might use it for as well. Yeah. So right in here, we've got our zoom options. So we've got different zoom memory sets and the ability to kind of zoom in and out of our audio once it's in here. Then we've got our tools. So here's our tools. So we've got our zoomer at this point, and if I ever hover over any of these, it will pop up telling me which one is which is really nice. So in other words, you can go back and you can actually just kind of see them accordingly. We've got our trim tool, we've got our selector, we've got our grabber, we've got our scrubber tool, and we've got our pencil or pen tool. So most of these things you're actually seeing are very similar to what you've got in Audition. The trim tool is nice. Once you get it in there, I'll show you. You can just kind of click on it. Will actually trim right away. You don't have to do the select and delete and all those sort of things. And the other thing is we've got the scrubber here. And the scrubber is basically just like having a pot where you can scrub back and forth, and you can actually transport pots. So you can actually kind of really queue up or really get into the specific bit of audio that you're looking for. You also have the Smart tool, and if you engage that, then you've got 3 options depending on where your mouse is sitting on the audio track itself. So you can see it changing there as it goes between the icon of our selector tool and our grabber tool, depending on what part of the actual track we're actually sitting in. So there's a few different things and a few different options for us right there. Good stuff. Okay, so what we've got here is our transport. So it's going to tell us where we are and at what point we are in the actual audio as we're progressing through. Down here, this is our track header. So in our track header, we've got the name of it. We've also got our ability to record arm, input. So this is a little bit different from Audition. So in record arm, as soon as we hit that, then everything's going to cycle and we're going to be able to hear everything going through, unlike Audition, which is you have to engage the input button as well. The input button is basically just kind of a preview, so we can actually hear stuff going in, and so that we know that we got audio and we can set our levels, but we can't actually record anything until the record arm is ready to go. Then we've got our solo and mute, as you would imagine. Once we've got audio in here, we're going to be able to see it in different views, like waveform blocks and so on. However, these are also where we're going to actually be able to bring up our envelopes. So when we get into automation, we can actually go in and we can see our volume automation in there as well. And we can use our pencil or pen tool to actually write that automation in, or we can use latch and so on and so forth, depending on how we're manipulating it. Again, a lot of this is actually for the mix rather than the record. So over here, and this is again where we would actually change up our automation. We can change it up as well on the actual control surface. So we've got our audio levels right here. We're gonna see that in play. We're gonna be up and around in this area. Whenever this one does peak, it's gonna stay, that red is just gonna stay on there. You have to click that right away. And it's just basically then telling you that there was a mistake. It had, peaked out and there was some overmodulation at some point. So, make sure that it has been fixed is basically what it's telling you at that point. This is where we're going to insert any effects. So we can insert effects into this area. So that's, again, very much like Audition. We can bring in into our effects panel, and these are our inserts. Then we get into our I/O right here as well, and our pan and so on. So again, that's Cole's notes, very, very basic and very, very brief, because what we're actually going to be using this one for is a record device. So basically at this point, we're going to be recording everything in. Then I'll show you where those are to be able to take out to another digital audio workstation for you to be able to mix accordingly if so required. Yeah. So in the elective, then you can record in here, you can mix in here and do all those sort of things. So you can kind of get your hands on and get a good play of Pro Tools and MIDI as well and all those sort of things. For what we're worried about right now is just getting a basic record through here in these last few weeks of this course. So, okay, without further ado, let us now come over there. We're going to hit our record arm. So a couple of different ways I can do that. I can do that over here, or I can come over and I can actually hit record arm over here as well. So right up there, I can hit record arm, and that's going to record on those two tracks. Obviously, we don't have any audio coming through yet, so without further ado, let's go next door and set up our microphone and so on. Okay, so as we know, we just need to get a little bit of signal through. So you can use whatever you so choose. I've got the old classic. Pull this out, plug this in. See if we can hear Mike on the radio this morning. Yeah, so you got that going through, so that's awesome. So we're going to pull this out when we're going to get all this set up. But for right now, I'm just going to plug this in. Now, this snake is going to allow us to be able to move this accordingly, depending on what or where we've got it. So, got a little bit of a thing going on. So I'm just going to place this for right now, right here. You'll see on there, we've got all the channels 1 through 16 labeled. And if we had all the mic cables that perfect, which we don't unfortunately, we would have mic cable number 1 right now. Yeah, but we got mic cable number 23, so we'll kind of deal with that. And if we are going to do some recording in here, we'll kind of change up the mic cables accordingly. However, we would want to make sure that we're lining these up so that when we put that in and we've got 16 mic cables going out, we can quickly identify any issues or any problems because it's actually labeled on the actual mic cable as well. So I'm just going to place this right here. Super quick. We're going to use this one today. Place that right there. We're going to use a couple of different ones. So this is a different microphone you haven't seen yet or you haven't used yet. So this one we're going to use for our electric guitar today. So we're going to mic the amp with this one. So this is a condenser microphone. There it is in all its glory. So the beauty of this one is that we can actually, change up the pickup pattern. So we can just change that up right on here. So which is super nice. We got multiple pickup patterns we can bring in. So we've got cardioid, hypercardioid, omni, and we've actually got figure of 8 as well. So we could put this in between two, mics, or two sound sources, I should say, and then we can actually, pick that up, which is super nice. On the other side as well, we've got our pad. So from 0 to -10. So again, pad is cutting down the audio coming through into it. So if we've got some really loud source, we might need to do that. And we've also got our roll-off filter on here as well. So if we want to cut down those low frequencies, we can do so. So without further ado, I'm going to pop that on here. This one does have a nice little shock mount on here. So I'm just going to pop over. And let's see if we've got the right one on there. I do. So I'm just going to place this on, start pulling this over. And let's see, we got that pretty close to where we want that to be. Good stuff. Okay. I'm not too worried about making this correctly. I just want to get some signal through, so. Here is the pickup pattern, or the frequency response of this microphone in its different pickup patterns. So you can see that as well. Again, this is actually, condenser microphone, so it's actually quite nice and flat, which is good. A little bit up in the higher end to give us a nice little bit of, sweetening in that area. So I'm going to place that right there. And I'm just going to come in. And, can you hold that for me for 1 second? Perfect, makes it a little bit easier for me. I can actually pull this up through. I'll just do that. Wonderful, so that should be good. Whoops, thank you. Alrighty, so that's good. So basically all we're doing right now is just a little test. We'll come back in here and set this up correctly when we're ready to go. So, let's crank this up. Next door. So we'll close that off. Good. Okay. So you notice that we don't have any audio coming through yet. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we've got to do. Let's talk a little bit about the signal flow before we get there, though. So if you look underneath, we've got our purple kind of lines coming in. We've got a whole bunch of lines doing its thing at this point. So the purple lines are the ones that are going to that bulkhead. So we've got the ins and the outs going through at this point. So the first point of call is this coming through and into our off-board preamps. So that's what we've got here. So these are 16 input preamps. We got 8 and 8 down here. So this off-board preamp, basically, again, as we know, the signal coming off the mic there is very weak, so it needs to be boosted before it can actually be processed correctly. In this case, we're boosting it here, the first port of call to be boosted to here. So remember, when we're talking about different points where we can adjust the input level of a signal, that's called the signal chain. So at this point, this is the first point. So channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, channel 5, channel 6, channel 7, channel 8, and so on and so forth. So if we look at this right now, you'll notice that we've got the ability to put phantom power on this microphone. This is a condenser microphone, so it does require phantom power. So that's good. So we've got that coming in. The next thing over we've got is our input level. As I adjusted that, you started to see that we got some, green kind of showing at that point. So it's starting to pop a little bit, which is nice. And if I crank it up even more, it's going into the red there. Now the usual position, even though we won't get there today because we don't have a super loud source, is to have it where we got that green going and just slightly getting into the red. Just slightly getting into the red. Well, we can't even get there. So us today will probably won't even see anything. And I'll show you why in a second. Then you'll notice that the first two channels, we've got line, we've got instrument, we've got so two different types of input level coming in. So if we had line level, we'd hit line. If we had instrument direct in, we would hit that. If we've got, and that's basically direct in straight into the actual, snake there. It doesn't mean going through a direct in box because the direct in box is actually doing all the processing for us. So then we've got the ability to change the polarization of this channel. So if we are actually having something that's out of phase, we can adjust it there. Again, you can turn that on and off until it sounds the best. Another high pass filter, so another low cut filter right there as well. So we can keep putting all of these things to get rid of those low frequencies if we require it. Then we got our input level. Then we've got this, which is dynamics. So we can actually compress the signal right here as well. Again, we don't have anything to kind of show us what we're doing, so it's just by sound at this point. So you've got to be really conscious of that and really trust your speakers or your headphones. So, so best probably just to keep that off and do it in post-production. Sometimes though, people might really want to kind of hear what it sounds like, compressed, but again, probably best just to do it in post-production. Okay, and then we're all the way through. So you can put your headphones in here and just hear how the signal's going at this point. And it's just a point of call where we can actually hear how things are. So you'll notice that there's lights on this one and none on this one. Don't worry about that. Like I said, a little bit older, got a bit of character. It is on at this point. Yeah. So if it's not on though, that's the power. So you want to make sure you got the power. Again, no one should ever turn those off there. It should always be turned off right there. Good stuff. Okay, so like I said, signal chain. This is the first point of call. Second port of call is actually coming into the board now. So it's coming from here over into the board. And in the board, we actually have preamps again. So we've actually got two positions for preamps. And that's why I said we might have to kind of turn this one down. Because we've actually got the ability to adjust the signal here or the input level here as well. And the reason, basically, what we've got is the sum of the two makes the whole. So if I adjust one here, that's going to bring the whole level down. If I adjust one here, that's going to bring the whole level up. So you never really want to have one cranked and one right low. So we're kind of middle of the road on both of them, just so you've got the ability to adjust.
So you just put them both at 12 o'clock?
Yeah, but kind of in the middle to start with, and then adjust accordingly.
All right.
Yeah, all depending on how level everything is and how loud everything is. Okay, so let's come over here to this board. Now, it might look super complex with a whole bunch of buttons and all that sort of stuff, but don't worry, for the most part, only the stuff that's got the masking tape is all that you're going to be worried about. So there's only a few little areas here. So this is a channel strip. So this whole channel strip at this point is what we're kind of worried about. Once we've got level coming through and everything's kind of coming in, then we should be able to start seeing some level over here. And you're probably wondering why we're not seeing anything yet, but you'll see that right away, actually. Underneath that, we've got a peak indicator and another place to put a high-pass filter on. Yeah, so tons of places to do that. Underneath that, where the masking tape is, this is a super important button. It defaults to line input. So it defaults to line. We need it to be mic. So I'm just going to come over. I'm going to turn our volume down on our speakers just in case it's cranked up and deafen ourselves. So I'll press it once. That gets us to direct in. I'm going to press it again. And if we're in business, which we are luckily, we've now got level coming in. Yeah, so that's mic level. So we need to make sure that we're on mic level on all of the inputs that come in. So the norm is to turn that on, set your levels, come over here and, not set your levels, sorry. Set up your tracks, come over here and change them to mic. Because in the heat of the moment while you're over there setting stuff up and then you come back in, you're like, wow, why can't I hear anything? You want to do the things that are fiddly ahead of time so that you don't have to try and worry about that while you're, dealing with while you haven't got any audio. So you can see right now we're peaking out, the same we're peaking here. If everything's working all right over here, we've actually got level coming into Pro Tools, which is excellent. And again, if everything's working correctly, we're good. And we've got everything right there. So we got level coming through, everything's working all right, and we're happy. You'll also notice that we've actually got level showing, or we've got input coming in on our I/O box as well, and I'll get to that in a second. So underneath right now, I can adjust my input level on this one, as you can see, cranked it all the way down. And I can also adjust my input level over here as well. And again, as you can see, cranked it all the way down. So it really is the sum of the two that's going to make the whole. So what I would recommend doing is kind of getting into that position where you've got them both around about the same, and then adjusting accordingly. Now, these are better preamps than these. So these ones are going to sound better than these ones. So if I was to play around with this a little bit more, I may turn this one down and turn this one up, so we get the colorization of these ones onto this. Yeah, so it sounds just a little bit better. For all we're worried about right now, those nuances we won't even perceive them. Yeah, so we just need to get the best level out of these two. And instead of having one right down low and another one cranked, it's a little bit easier for us to be able to reach over and adjust any one of these just a tiny little bit to get the level that we want, and not have to worry about, oh, now I'm all the way off, or I've got one pinned, that sort of stuff. So we're aiming to get the best level we can out of this, the most level we can without peaking. Our minus 10 dB average peak is a good one to look for, but if we can bump it up a little bit more, great. We still need to have that headroom though. Yeah, we don't want to ever peak out. So when we do go through it, we would get them to play all the way through to get a bit of an idea of if any of those, or like we'd ask them, can you please play the loudest part of the song? And as soon as they play the loudest part of the song, then we can set that level. And then we wouldn't touch that while they're playing the quietest part either. We leave that, and then when it comes up, we're not going to be sitting there right in that level. We'll do that in mixing afterwards. Good. Okay, so there we go. You saw the input, the record arm inputs right there at that point. We can jump over this next little section. You can see right off the bat now this labeled, so lead guitar and bass. So whatever we label over there is coming over into here. Another reason why we want to relabel, so we can actually see on the board itself as well. Then we're going to jump over here. We're actually going to jump all the way down, to tell you honest truth. We got our solo and mutes right in here as well. Mute in there, and then we've got our level selectors. So a lot of these other things that we've got in here, we can adjust our pan and ascend, adjust our EQ and so on. So these are all things that once we're actually getting into the overall mix of it. So we can get in here, we can mix. A lot of the stuff that you've been doing in software only, which is somewhat fiddly. I'm sure you're kind of sick of like clicking and dragging with the mouse up and down just a tiny little bit. It's a little bit nicer to be able to do it in here, where you've actually just got the little fader to be able to adjust and so on. So, as with all recordings, audio recordings, we're going to record at highest level for all of our instruments, and then this is the mix. So the band, when they're in there, let's say we got the whole band in and we're doing a full band recording at this point, they're not going to want to hear all instruments at that level. Just like in the Advantage Suite, we kind of talked about it a little bit. So they're not going to want to hear all of that at the same level. So we're going to have to give them an overall mix in here to be able to hear that. And in this suite, rather than what we've had in the others, is that everyone's going to get that same mix. So they're all going to hear the same one through. There's the headphone distribution boxes that I'm going to show you right away. So it's good, it works. It's just a little bit older, but it's totally fine. Okay, so from here, the audio, let's come over here. Talk about this. So showing our outputs right here, so that's great. Over here again, we've got a whole bunch of spots that we can actually see. They've got some masking tape. So obviously we've got our main monitor control right there. We've got, if it's on any of these other inputs, we're not going to hear it. Yeah, so we want to make sure again that we're on that. It defaults to that anyway, but you never know, you might just jog it for whatever reason. Then over here, these two are actually quite important. This one is anyway. This one is for the headphone. So any of these, if you don't have them engaged, you're not going to be able to hear it. So this one right now is our headphone out, and it is actually going back into the studio. So we can't actually plug our headphones in here. We're going to be dealing with it with our monitors. So we're going to be listening to it monitors. In there is what we're actually going to be able to hear anything going through this parameter or this element. So they're going to be able to plug in and hear everything through, and it's coming out back out on this one right now. Good stuff. Okay, so once we've got some recording in there, we're going to be able to adjust our controls. Once I do a recording, all I have to do is come in here and hit record and play, and that's going to record anything that's been recorded on at this point. So that's recording in, we're good to go. At this point I'm going to hit stop. So again, it's just record, hold it in, and then press play, and then that's going to start that whole recording. So if I come over here now, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see that in play. So those are all the bits required, and I can start adjusting and playing around in here if I so choose. Like I said, I can go in, I can trim right off the bat, and I can do all of those sort of things that you're going to be used to doing in Audition, depending on what we're doing and so on. So I can turn this one down, and I can come in just with the scrubber, and I should, whoops. So there we go, so we can hear that kind of going back through. Obviously I was getting that through, that's why I turned off the record arm in there too. So, and again, when I'm coming in, if I want to be able to go in and adjust the automation of this, I can do so. Bring that down like so. So it's pretty cool. You can get in there, you can do a whole bunch of stuff quite fast and so on, just like you can in Audition. So I'm just going to come back out. I'm going to go back to the waveform there. The main thing though for us is that I can now go into the folder that we had, and I can go in and you can see here I've got lead guitar 1 and bass 1. So I can now know whatever take was the best. I can go in there, I can grab that, and I can start mixing accordingly. So I can go in here and I can record over this multiple times. It doesn't matter. All depends on what I'm actually going to be doing with the audio and so on and so forth. Okay, so at this point, let's just zoom back out of that. I don't need any of these, so I can delete this out at this point. We're going to come in and we're going to do a nice new recording of our guitar and so on. Okay, so just taking a look, I know we've got a whole bunch of different buttons in here. Again, these are all parameters that are part of the actual software. So I can actually go in and I can change any of these from the actual control service. So I can change my edit mode from right here. I can change my zoom options are right here, my windows and so on. Edit tools are all right in here. I can just kind of press to go from each one, as I so choose. I can just press one there and go. All depends on how you want to work. You can do it through software or you can do it through the hardware. So a lot of buttons in here, a lot of ones that you don't have to worry about for a straight up recording. Good. Questions or concerns in this part?
Is it okay if I show this vid to the class?
Oh yeah, you betcha. No worries at all. No problem.
There's definitely going to be stuff that we're going to forget.
Oh yeah, no worries. There'd be more time to come in again, and I'm keeping the project very basic because there's a bit of a compressed time frame for this one.
So for the first years, are you using this room?
No.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
No, first years aren't in on this one, so it's all second years.
Okay.
All second years. I should say as well, from the board, it goes back into the I/O box. So that is the I/O box for Pro Tools. Without that, Pro Tools isn't going to be doing anything. That's where it's basically the audio is turning from analog to digital. and then from there it's being processed so that we can then get it through into the software and so on. And that's where all of the business end of the box is right there. Good. Okay, without further ado, let's go next door and do a final little setup, and then we'll do a little bit of recording, and then we'll do a little bit of playing.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up the lead guitar and the bass. So the amp. So we're going to bring the amp over. I'm going to place it in here. So if we're going to do a recording in this space, as you would imagine, the amp right in the middle here, that's going to be quite reverberant, or it's going to pollute a lot of the other mics that we might have, especially if we've got the whole band in. So it's totally fine to have a whole band recording all at once. I know what you mean. But at that point, what you're going to do is, remember, you're going to record the rhythm section first. So everybody's in there so they can kind of play along and get a little bit of sense of it all. And you're going to make sure you get the rhythm section. So basically, you're recording for the drum set and the bass. And then afterwards, you can go back in and you can track in, the guitars. You can track in the piano, you can track in the vocals and all those sort of things. You could do it all in one big go as well, which is what a lot of people do, like in their, basements and so on and so forth. It all depends on how it goes. So if we were going to do that, one thing we would want to do is try to ensure that our microphone isn't going to get, this microphone isn't going to get polluted by anything else and all those sort of things. So what we are actually going to do is we're going to bring in some of our acoustic baffling. So our baffles here are super handy little things. You can see we've got two sides to them. This side is actually a side that's useful. So that's reflective side. So that's going to allow the sound to bounce around like crazy. Think of it this way: if you're doing a recording here, I'm recording, and you've got this on one side, and you've got that fully open on the other. So that is going to now bounce out and bounce back, whereas that's just going to go off and get absorbed. So in that case, you want to try to, and this is the only place that you could record, then you want to try to mimic this hard surface a little bit. So you would then bring this in to try to mimic that hard surface so that you're getting the condensed and or the sound that you require. However, we're going to look on this side, which is going to trap and kill some of these sounds a little bit, and hopefully stop any audio coming in as well to our microphone. So you can see here, we can actually build these up, like you can see, as high as we want, or as high as it's safe before they come over. They're nice and light, so not going to do any real damage anyway. You've got to watch out for one thing, which is these little lights fall off all the time. So you just have to pop another one in. So right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the microphone in, and then we're going to build this up around it to try to isolate it as much as possible. So without further ado, let's pull this over. I'm going to bring it into the play. We're going to have the guitarist and the bassist in play here.
You want a triangle?
You betcha. Yeah, we'll do a couple more in. Perfect. Thanks everyone. I'm going to grab an extension cord. Alrighty. Love it. Actually, what we'll do is, I'll show you in a second. Pretty close. So let's bring a little bit of power over. So we got this ready to go. Wonderful. So what we'll do is, I'm just going to place this like so.
Channel 1, Grim?
Yes, please. Put this in nice and close. And put this in underneath, like so. And we're going to place this right in there. So we've got a little bit of a space there. So you can adjust this accordingly. get that in, adjust this accordingly. Get it into where we need it. So pretty close, yeah? The other area that we're going to pop across is just in the back end of it right here. So you can see there that we've got it pretty isolated. There's a little bit of space right there, but for overall, what we're going to need it for, it's going to be everything that we require at this point. Obviously, audio is going to pop out and you go do its own thing, but there's a lot of absorption happening right there. So we'll see how that sounds and how that's going to work for us. The other thing that we're going to record today is the bass. So if you don't mind, we'll set up another mic cable to channel 2 and the direct in as well. And I'm just going to grab one other thing that we're going to need.
Are we gonna play both of them at the same time?
You betcha.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll rotate through.
Okay. Oh, okay. There's okay.
Yeah. So everybody can kind of hear and all that.
Yep.
So I brought the old music stand out, not because we need to have music on, but because it's going to be a spot that we're going to be able to kind of place some of our headphone distribution boxes on. So let's grab a couple of chairs for our musicians. It's cool. I'm going to grab one right here.
I'll be right back.
Sure. And right here. Perfect, perfect. Looking good. Excellent. Okay. So he's going to be right back. Might be grabbing the guitars. We need to grab the guitar and the bass, so we'll go do that right now. I think he might be doing that. You should get one for this studio.
I'm gonna give it to you.
What? No. What about one?
I'll just get another one.
Oh, no.
Just as a gift for
No. We'll actually get pop it.
where would you like?
Actually, maybe pop it over here and then we can get to it super easy. You just got this from Take Good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are like exactly like those. So
Interesting.
Sorry, just a super quick question if you just have a quick second.
Sure.
With I'm trying man's the site here, I'm trying to open all these PDFs here, but when I click on it, it just gives me this big gray wall of nothing, and even when I try to do like direct link to this file, I just get that. I can't open any of the PDFs to read the notes. Like all the kind of like little practice up here, I can open that fine. It's just all the PDFs with all the actual notes.
Did you try someone else's computer?
See.
What I'll do is I'll log into a different computer
Okay.
and see if you can. So that Lincoln's there. So if you can log out of yours, log into that, and if it's the same on that with your profile, then we know it's your profile.
Right.
And if it doesn't work on that, then we know it's your computer.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after that, if it's your computer, I'd pop down to computer help because I don't know.
Sure.
And then if it's your profile, I'll email them and we'll get you sorted. Great. Okay, perfect. All right. So at this point, we need a cable, right? Guitar for the app.
Oh, for like.
So there's like another one over here.
I have one.
There's
Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one.
Go. I was like looking at that. I think they're not in there. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So there's one other thing we're going to have to do before we can start getting going here. We got that in. Perfect. So that's this thing. So before we had the nice and fancy the personal mixers and so on, this is what we got for in here. So it's basically just a headphone distribution little box. So we got the ability to put in two headphones into this. our people are a little bit further away, so we're actually going to grab one more, grab one out of the storage there. But what we need to do is just actually go from the output from our bulkhead into here, and then we'll feed it around. It'll daisy chain on from that point. So I'm just going to come over. I'm just going to plug in. And I'm going to go into output number 1. So it's output number 1. See this? So just grabbing this, and output number 1 is right there. It says it's what does it say? A5501. Yeah, so that's the one. And I'm just going to pull this over. And as I said before, I'm just going to walk it out. And walking it out will ensure they don't get that horrible, big knot or anything like that. So I'm just going to come over here. And the first point of call, I'm just going to place right there. I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to plug in. And I'm just going to plug into input. That's point. Now, the musician can plug their headphones in and adjust their volume, but that's all they can adjust. So before, they had it super nice in the other suite there where they can do their own personal mix. Here they're going to get our mix, but they can only adjust the volume. Now we're going to grab one more mic cable. So I'm going to grab one more utility, and I'm going to go into the output, and I'm going to feed it around to our lead guitar position as well. So I'm going to go get my keys. If somebody doesn't mind going and grabbing me an extra mic cable, just the utility one, yeah, that'd be perfect. I'll go grab a key. Oh, yeah. So I have all these out for us. So there's another one. And what we'll do there is we'll feed that around. Perfect. Let me just throw those back in. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to place this one over here. And so what's going on? So output right there. It's close. And I'm just going to feed this around. So this one was wrapped not too badly, but we got a little bit of something going on there. And I'm just going to be able to place that at the base. Perfect, thanks. And there it is. So I can place this in here, and that's going to go into the input. So just so you know, the project will have a little bit of this kind of stuff going on in it. Just a little bit of, again, setting up, feeding things around, and so on. And I'm just going to pull this just in case I get a bit of a tripping hazard there. Good. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. Yeah? Awesome. Alrighty. So we'll go to guitar over here. We'll plug that in. Actually, I think at this point, so Dawson and I will stay out here. If we come over here, it's going to be pretty straightforward for you both, actually. I'm going to be able to jump in if required. I will power it all down again, or we'll do it again just so you get the whole process through. But pretty much all you're going to need to do is exactly like the other one there. We don't have our talkback. That's again, on the suite, not once it's all set up correctly, it will be in a good way. So it is hand signals at this point. Yeah, so it's like, at this point, you can point to whoever and get the level and all that kind of stuff. All you're going to need to do, because it's all pretty much set up for you, is just get good level between these two. And that should be pretty much it. If there is any issues though, let me know and I can pop in. Remember, this is just the mix, so we'll pop that to, you can adjust that mix afterwards and so on. What we'll actually going to do is I'll go through that and then we'll sub you in, because then that way we can play a little bit. And then at that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to power it all down and then we'll power it back again. Get those some levels. Sound good? Awesome. Okay. Without further ado. Okay. So it's you and I again, Dawson.
Okay.
We have to come up with a new song to play.
Pretty much.
So at this point, they're just going to get some levels.
Okay.
So we're just going to play around a little bit.
Alright.
Cool. So that's your bass position. You might want your headphones to be able to hear
Definitely.
at that point. I'll come down over here. And now I'm just going to come over. I'm going to go just shut down from this point and hit shut down. So that's shutting down there. I'm going to turn this one off first. So we're not going to get any pops. Then I'm going to shut this one off. And I'm going to shut this one off. So there it is. Good to go. If I don't shut everything down like this, then this is going to sit here and it's going to cook away and get super hard and all that kind of stuff. So we always want to shut everything down once we're completed. So that's cycling through and it's going to be good to go. So once that starts back up, you're now welcome to come in and get everything going again, just from the start. I'm going to go use the washroom, then I'm going to come over and I'll sit down and I'll start tootling around a little bit and you can place me wherever you so choose. I messed a few things up just so it's not super easy. Awesome.
Oh, okay. So it's using one of those cables. Interesting.
I need my phone. Yeah, I think I did. No, so. No, I didn't. It's right on the front there, right above the USB cable there.
That is expensive.